Would you stay silent? Or let revenge speak for you? Welcome to the stories on Shattered Vengeance. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The Grand Ballroom at the Fairmont Hotel sparkled with my sister Catherine's vision of matrimonial perfection. Cascading white orchids, crystal chandeliers, and enough imported French champagne to impress the society photographers she'd hired to document every strategic moment. I smoothed my navy dress while watching wedding coordinators position final floral arrangements around tables arranged in careful order of social importance. "Photography is absolutely crucial," Catherine announced to our family, clutching her phone like a military commander reviewing invasion plans. "The wedding album needs to showcase the right connections: federal judges, city council members, the pharmaceutical executives from Richard's firm." Mom nodded approvingly, studying the seating chart with the intensity of someone orchestrating diplomatic negotiations. "Perfect positioning for maximum social impact. This wedding establishes our family's place among the city's influential circles." I stood near the ballroom's French doors, overlooking the hotel's gardens while my secure phone displayed messages from the State Department about Monday's briefing with the European Union trade delegation. 3 years of foreign service work in increasingly complex diplomatic positions, and my family still introduced me as someone who worked overseas, without any specifics about what that actually meant. "Where should we position Maria for photos?" the photographer asked, reviewing his shot list while guests began arriving for cocktail hour. "Keep her away from the main photography," Mom instructed firmly, lowering her voice as if discussing a logistics problem. "Maria's career situation is undefined. Better to avoid explaining her work to important guests." Undefined. I'd spent 18 months coordinating trade negotiations between 3 countries and managing diplomatic communications that affected billions in international commerce. But because my work happened in embassies and government buildings rather than corporate boardrooms, it registered as unemployed wandering rather than professional achievement. "Position her behind the potted plants during group shots," Catherine added, adjusting her dress train while mentally calculating photo opportunities. "The important guests need to be prominently featured. Maria can blend into the background." I'd stopped trying to explain my career after the disastrous Thanksgiving when I'd mentioned briefing congressional committees on Latin American policy. Dad had listened politely before suggesting I consider something more stable, like Catherine's pharmaceutical marketing position. Catherine's pharmaceutical marketing involved creating social media content for a mid-sized company. My work involved coordinating responses to international crises and maintaining relationships with foreign governments. But Catherine's job came with business cards and office buildings that people could understand, while mine required security clearances and diplomatic protocols that sounded fictional to civilians. "The mayor's wife just arrived," Catherine whispered excitedly, watching guests filter into the cocktail reception. "This is exactly the kind of recognition our family needs. Real connections with influential people." I checked another encrypted message while Catherine orchestrated introductions with local politicians, unaware that her sister who needed to hide behind plants had been coordinating with ambassadors and foreign ministers all week. The ceremony proceeded flawlessly, with Catherine floating down the rose-petal aisle toward her pharmaceutical executive fiancé while 250 carefully selected guests witnessed her ascension into what she considered the upper echelons of society. I sat in the designated family section's back corner, applauding appropriately while discreetly monitoring priority communications from the embassy about rapidly developing situations in Eastern Europe. During cocktail hour, I watched my family network with surgical precision. Dad discussed real estate law with municipal court judges while Mom charmed the spouses of hospital board members. Catherine posed for photos with every local dignitary as if she were hosting a state dinner rather than a hotel wedding. "Maria, come meet District Attorney Palmer," Dad called out, gesturing me toward a conversation cluster near the champagne station. He mentioned interest in our family's international experience. I joined the group diplomatically, listening to discussions about prosecution strategies while my phone buzzed with updates from the crisis management team. Romanian trade situation escalating. EU delegation requests immediate consultation on tariff implications. "Your daughter travels extensively for work?" Palmer asked Dad, turning to me with polite curiosity. What brings you overseas so frequently? Government consulting, I replied carefully, using the cover explanation approved for social situations. International policy coordination. NGO work. Admirable. Someone needs to handle the humanitarian side while real diplomats manage the serious negotiations. He nodded approvingly before returning attention to Dad's more comprehensible legal practice. NGO work. I'd negotiated trade agreements that affected 3 million jobs and coordinated diplomatic responses that prevented 2 potential international incidents. But to people outside government circles, international work meant charity organizations rather than foreign policy implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, dinner is served, the wedding coordinator announced. Please find your assigned tables. Catherine had designed the reception like a political convention, with strategic seating to maximize networking for her new married life. The head table featured her husband's pharmaceutical connections, while surrounding tables mixed judges, executives, and civic leaders in calculated arrangements. I located table 18, positioned behind towering floral displays that effectively screened lesser guests from the main reception area. My tablemates included distant cousins, college friends, and other social afterthoughts who wouldn't interfere with serious power brokering at important tables. Maria, I haven't seen you in forever, exclaimed cousin Jennifer, a public school teacher. Mom said you're living in Europe now? That sounds so romantic. It has interesting moments, I replied, settling into my chair while checking urgent messages about trade negotiations that could reshape European agriculture policy. During the salad course, my secure phone rang with the distinctive tone reserved for Category Alpha emergencies. I excused myself quietly, stepping onto the hotel's garden terrace where Table 18's strategic positioning actually provided useful privacy for classified communications. Maria, we have developments. My handler's voice carried unusual tension. The Romanian grain export crisis has escalated to cabinet-level attention. Ambassador Williams needs your assessment within 2 hours. I glanced through the ballroom windows at Catherine's perfect reception, where local politicians debated zoning ordinances while international commerce negotiations unraveled across the Atlantic. I'm at my sister's wedding reception, I said quietly, noting the irony. Understood, but this cannot wait. Your expertise on agricultural trade law is essential. How quickly can you reach a secure location? Before I could respond, my personal phone buzzed. Maria, stay behind the plants during toast photos. We want to highlight the important family connections. The convoy appeared first as distant headlights winding through the hotel's circular drive, but the distinctive formation of 3 black SUVs with motorcycle escorts quickly attracted attention from guests enjoying cocktails on the terrace. Conversations slowed as wedding attendees processed the unexpected sight of what appeared to be official government transportation arriving at a private social event. Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have some unexpected visitors, Catherine announced from the bandstand, her voice tight with controlled panic as she watched the diplomatic security detail deploy around the hotel's main entrance. I'm sure it's just coincidental traffic. Through the ballroom's floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see uniformed security personnel establishing a perimeter while guests pressed against the glass, phones out and recording what had rapidly transformed from elegant wedding reception to potential international incident. That's not coincidental traffic, District Attorney Palmer observed grimly, his legal training recognizing the coordinated movements of federal protection details. That's diplomatic security. State Department level. Before anyone could speculate further, 6 individuals in dark suits appeared at the ballroom's main entrance, moving with the unmistakable precision of diplomatic security service agents. The lead agent approached Catherine's wedding coordinator, spoke briefly, then gestured toward the back of the reception area where Table 18 sat hidden behind decorative foliage. Excuse me, the lead agent called out across the increasingly silent ballroom. I'm looking for Maria Santos. The entire reception froze. 250 guests turned toward Table 18 while I stood slowly, mentally calculating extraction protocols while Catherine's face cycled through confusion, embarrassment, and dawning horror. I'm Maria Santos, I replied, gathering my purse while my tablemates stared with expressions suggesting they'd suddenly discovered their dinner companion was an entirely different person. Ma'am, I'm Agent Rodriguez with Diplomatic Security Service. Ambassador Williams has requested immediate consultation regarding the developing situation with Romanian trade negotiations. We have secure transportation standing by. The words hung in the ballroom's crystal-clear air like a diplomatic bombshell. My cousin Jennifer's wine glass remained frozen halfway to her lips while District Attorney Palmer stared with the expression of someone recalculating everything he thought he knew about NGO work. Ambassador Williams? Catherine's voice cracked slightly as her perfect wedding photography session transformed into something resembling an international crisis management briefing. Ma'am, the ambassador specifically requested your expertise on agricultural trade law. Time is critical for the European Union delegation meetings scheduled for tonight. From across the ballroom, I could see my family's carefully constructed social event dissolving into chaos as guests realized the person they'd hidden behind potted plants was important enough to require diplomatic extraction. The walk to the waiting convoy felt endless, with 250 wedding guests watching their hidden table 18 afterthought transform into someone essential enough for ambassadorial consultation. I could feel cameras recording every step, social media posts already spreading about the mystery diplomatic crisis that had interrupted a society wedding. Catherine stood frozen beside her new husband as Agent Rodriguez escorted me toward the ballroom exit, her perfect reception now dominated by discussions of international trade law and diplomatic protocol rather than pharmaceutical networking opportunities. Maria, Mom's voice carried across the ballroom, what is happening? Why do ambassadors need you? International crises don't observe wedding schedules, Mom. The convoy departed as Catherine's reception continued in stunned confusion, her carefully orchestrated networking event now overshadowed by questions about her sister's actual profession and security clearance level. By morning, wedding photographers had sold images to news outlets running stories about mystery diplomat, whose identity remained classified. The family group chat went silent, probably overwhelmed by reporters requesting interviews about their daughter's real career. 3 days later, Catherine called from her honeymoon. Maria, CNN wants to interview Mom and Dad about raising a diplomatic insider. Why didn't you ever tell us what you actually do? I tried, Catherine. You seated me behind potted plants.